The first thing you do when you see the ball coming to your forehand side is that you turn to the side. So the most common mistake is to use your arm a lot to go back. Instead, you should turn to the side and you should prepare the racket mostly with your off hand. So when you're turning to the side, your right hand is basically resting on the racket. And I will show you the exercises in the biomechanics section of how you can practice that. But for now, your right hand can just rest on the racket and you're basically preparing mostly with your left arm, and you just turn to the side. So just to mention, another mistake that might happen is that you are thinking too much about back. So you're thinking that you must prepare your racket back. You don't prepare your racket back, you prepare it to the side. Just to the side. The rest will just happen during the stroke. So that will be another part of the stroke. And your body will also help with turning. So your racket will be behind you, even if you don't think about behind. So when you're preparing, think about preparing to the side, to the right side. So if I show from this angle, when I prepare my racket, it feels like my hands are like this to the side. So if I show without the racket, if I'm here, this is my ready position, and I prepare my forehand, this is how I would feel. My both hands are to the side. And so if I now put, if you see, my hands are like this, if I put my racket in my hand, then the face of the racket is also pointing to the side. So that's one checkpoint for you. That when you're preparing the racket face, if you're holding a semi-western grip, is also to the side. So again, from this angle, that's your checkpoint. What can be tricky here is that when we turn our body, when we turn our shoulders, our head wants to turn too. And so this is one part of a tennis stroke that is a bit unnatural, because we need to keep our head straight while we turn the shoulders, because we are still looking on the other side, and we have to keep our eyes on the ball so that we can perceive depth really well. We need to see it 3D, in 3 dimensions. If we turn our head too quickly, then we might block one eye from seeing the ball well, and then it's just one eye on the ball and we can't judge the depth well. And therefore you must practice a little bit to turn your shoulders 90 degrees, but don't turn your head. I used to do this a lot in front of the mirror when I was younger and when I became aware of it. So I did many times like this in front of the mirror, and I was just looking myself in the eye in the mirror, and I was just trying to see if my head turned, for example. And I saw that's not good. My head must not turn when I prepare, and yet my shoulders must do 90 degrees from the previous position. So this is the ready position, and then I need to prepare. I put the racket to the side, I help with my left hand, and this is the preparation. Another checkpoint that you can check that helps you correct your stroke is the position of your hand, or actually the height. So how high is your hand? Some players, they don't lift it enough, so the hand is basically at the same height where it was. So this is the height of my belly button. So when I prepare, this will be a bit too low because you have no swing. So you're just turning and it'll be probably muscling the ball. But if your hand goes too high, and too high is defined above your shoulder. So anything above your shoulder can cause you problems. It's not really bad, it depends how high it is, but it's a checkpoint. So for us coaches, we are looking at certain checkpoints. So if I see the hand above the shoulder here, the player might have a problem with timing, because then your swing will be very big and it will be very difficult to time the ball, especially if it's coming a bit fast. So a good checkpoint is that your wrist, your hand, is roughly at the height of your shoulder, or perhaps a bit lower. So for me, my forehand would be something like this. So as you can see, it's just a bit lower than my shoulder. maybe if I have a lot of time and if I want to do a big swing, if I'm far behind the baseline, then I would increase my swing and then my hand would be at the height of my shoulder. But what is important is that you feel some lift. So from ready position you want to feel that your hand is coming up a bit, because when it's up it can also go down, because that's how you're going to create a swing. You need to come on top of a roller coaster, if you imagine like that, and then you're going to swing and you're going to use gravity to help you accelerate the racket. If you don't lift your hand, then gravity will not help, because you will just go forward. Maybe you will just drop the racket head and go forward. So you will have to do everything alone. If you want to hit an effortless forehand, then what you're trying to do is you're trying to use laws of physics to your advantage. You want to combine laws of physics and your work so that you can hit as efficiently as possible. So again, from ready position you want to feel that there is a little bit of a lift. So both arms are going up, and the way to check that they don't go too high or too low is to look at yourself, record yourself, and see that your hand is roughly at the height of your shoulder and your arms are pointing to the side. So you don't want to do this when your hands are both pointing backwards. They're just to the side in the preparation phase. Another thing in this phase is that you want to transfer your weight on the right leg for right-handers, and also your foot usually pivots a bit. So if you look at my foot pivots a bit to the side, and here there's almost no weight. One common mistake that players do is that as they prepare they already step. So they're basically losing balance, because this stepping makes you rush and makes you lose balance. You don't calm down. So when you're preparing, the first move that you do is you go on this leg, and then if you have to, you will transfer weight forward. But you want to wait a bit on this leg if it's a nice ball, because this is the starting position. Sometimes if I get a nice ball, I just stay here and I do an open stance. So I'm just here and I do that. So I'm very efficient in terms of movements and timing, and that's why I can hit a good ball. If I make too many steps and the ball is coming to me, then I'm not very efficient. I will probably not hit a good ball. So what is the feel you're looking for in the preparation? Because you don't want to be preparing like this correctly, but very mechanically, because then your body is dead and it doesn't produce any efficient power. So you're just moving very robotically, and while it looks correct, it's very inefficient. So there has to be some natural movement in that. There has to be a certain feel. So what you want to feel in the ready position is that you are basically throwing the racket backwards gently, and you're doing it with the left hand. So the exercise that you can do is you bounce the racket a bit like this. So I'm holding it very gently and I'm just pushing it up in the air with my left hand. I'm just bouncing it like this. And so I want to feel this, and with this feel I want to feel my preparation, because what I want to do is I want to lift my racket up so that it will swing down. So I'm basically bringing my racket on top of a roller coaster, and then it's going to start to accelerate downwards and forwards. So instead of just bringing your racket up in a dead motion, like very mechanically, try to feel that you're basically pushing or throwing the racket up in the backswing with your left hand. So your right hand is resting. It's not your right hand that's preparing your forehand, but it's your left hand.